Hey, I want to get into some more etymology of words in this video. I've shown that symbols have different meanings. They can have whole layers of different meanings. Well, you have to know that our entire language is coded. It has several different languages within the language. Like, you think you're saying something, but if you don't know all of the meanings of the words, you could be saying something else and not even know it. There are actually several concepts coded in our language. Now, this one, it has different names. They call it legalese or legal or courtroom talk. But this has to do with what's called maritime law. It's also called admiralty law. Now, it's extremely important that you know what these words mean in maritime law. If you're doing anything with lawyers, courts, the government, like anything in the system, really, it all has to do with maritime law. You need to know this if you're going to court or dealing with the police. Let me tell you, I had an incident with the police a few months ago where I had a warrant and I got out of it by using just a little knowledge of maritime law. Okay, you might want to get this. Here, I have a copy. This is Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, this is how courts, government, and police define words. They all use this. Okay, maritime law. Now, there's a complex way of describing this. It's basically the law of water. Like, in this world, there's either the law of the land or the law of water. Okay, now, this law of the water, they also call it the law of the high sea. Now, people say, hey, we're on land. Why would they use maritime law here if that's the law of water? Okay, all you have to do is look at the language. You ever noticed these words? See, you have words like citizenship, relationship, leadership, membership, partnership, internship, ownership. Our money is called, it's currency. It's like current, that's the flow of the water. And it says the body of water is a sea. You have sails, like a ship sail. You have cash flow. You have liquid assets, frozen assets. You have a doctor, it's like a docked oar. You have bail. It's like if a ship is in trouble, you have to get off the ship. You have to bail. In court, you have the court dock. That's the front before the entrance to the courtroom. There's the court dock. There's the bailiff. You go to school, it's like a school of fish. You have a loan shark. A bank, that's like a river bank. Like a side of the river where the land meets the water. That's the river bank. For any important documents you have to sign. It's like sign, you can think of it like sign waves. Like the ocean, the tide, it waves. So you got to look at the words. You got to look closer at the things you're saying. Okay, now this also has to do with the age we're in. See, you can look at this. This is a diagram of long-term history, and it's split up into different ages. And these ages are named after astrological signs that the sun goes through. Now, we've been in these two ages. Now, these two ages we've been in, these are actually both water signs. In astrology, these are water signs. Okay, so we've been in this age of Pisces. Okay, this is the symbol for the water sign, the age of Pisces. Okay, Pisces is the two fish. You have like a left fish and a right fish. It's like they're going in different directions. Okay, this age of Pisces, it's been described as, it's been known as like the age of duality. Well, it's been called the age of deception. But okay, these two fish, it's like they're the left fish and the right fish. They're trying to go in different directions. But you see here, they're tied together. It's like they're trying to swim in different directions, but ultimately they're connected. Like in this country, in U.S. politics, there's a left and a right. They seem to be trying to go in opposite directions, but ultimately they're tied together. Like, say, they're tied to the secret societies of the Roman Church. Okay, now, So this duality. They keep this going. See, they know how to do this from ancient Egyptian schools. They called it the Amun priesthood. Okay, Amun means secret or hidden. Okay, this age of Pisces, this has also been known as the age of hiddenness. But okay, in these ancient Egyptian schools, okay, so they knew about the sun, the black sun. Now they keep this knowledge hidden from people. They hide it in plain view with these symbols. But okay, the black sun is your intuition. It's like your right brain. Okay, if you don't know this, then you can't merge the left and right brain. You can't form thoughts properly in this reality. So you get stuck in deception. Okay, so after this age of Pisces, now we've been entering this age of Aquarius. Okay, this picture, this is the age of Aquarius. It's the man with the water picture, and he's pouring down water. Okay, so you have the male above. He's pouring down water below. Okay, the water is a feminine concept. So that's your right brain, that's your intuition. Okay, so you have the male, the left brain, like the taking in, regurgitating information, giving way to intuitive thinking, the right brain. So you get the information, you know if it's correct or not, so there's no deception. Okay, so the society and this maritime law, it has to do with a lot with astrology, and also it has to do with the fact that this law of water has to do with the fact that you are mostly water. The human body is over 70%. It's almost 3/4 water. Okay, so now this has a lot to do with how people move and how people's energy, it flows and how it's directed. I'll get more into that in a minute. Okay, now this law of water, it's known as the law of money. Banking has to do with maritime law. Okay, it's what's called commerce. It's like commercial. See, commerce, also merchant. It's like mermaid. See, it's M-E-R. Mer is a word that means sea. Okay, so we're basically in a Roman system of this. Now, Rome got this from people called the Phoenicians. Now, the Phoenicians, they were into commerce. They had it set up on the Mediterranean Sea. They were trading different goods like precious metals. And actually, they were using Egyptian and Babylonian practices. And one of them was trafficking, including people, like slavery. But now they realized it's harder to control a living person. So now they were getting a lot of heat and they were getting busted by big leaders in Europe for these practices. So what they decided to do is they started a new system. They decided to have two of you. So they have the living person, you have the real flesh and blood entity, and then they create a corporate you. They create a corporation, a dead corpse. So this system today is basically the Roman version of that. Okay, the Roman Church, they started this. Okay, they started with the birth certificate. Now this started in 1302, the Pope issued the papal bull called Unum Sanctum. Okay, so now after going after all the property, they were done with like just material possessions. They want to move up. They want to own they want to own you down to your soul. They want to own the whole world. Okay, so now in the 1400s to 1500s, they started this what's called this law of trust. It's like canon law. Yeah, this is maritime admiralty law. Okay, so in the 1400s to 1500s, there were 3 more papal bulls that were issued. Okay, it started with, in 1455, it was the Romanus Pontifex. This is where the pontiff controls all the land. Okay, in 1481, that was the Attorney Regis. That's the birth certificate. It's for a trust for every child born. A sale of the birth certificate is given to the central bank. And then in 1540, this one was granted to England. This is what's called the reaping of lost souls. Okay, so this has to do with baptism. This is another certificate that goes to the Vatican. Okay, so the Roman Church, so they started this using birth certificates. So what happens is the birth certificate declares you under this maritime law, this law of the sea. It declares you to be lost at sea, and while you're lost at sea, until you come back, you're pronounced dead. You're known as legally dead. So you're pronounced dead until you have to legally declare that you're still alive. Okay, an example of this kind of trust. Okay, now in the Crusades, now soldiers, like in the Knights Templar, that would go out fighting, they would leave their property behind. So they would leave Europe and they would go off to the Middle East. And now when they left to the Middle East, they would go out fighting for this new religion, for Christianity. And they didn't know if they were going to make it back. Many died in the Crusades. So they left their property behind in England, and they didn't want it just up for grabs for anyone to steal or just come along and take. So a system was started of putting the property in what's called a trust. And that trust was assigned to someone called a trustee. Now this trustee had official ownership of the property until the soldier comes back and they have to formally declare themselves to be still alive, like they didn't die out there. Okay, so that's basically the system like the Roman Church is using today. It's like if you register your baby, you have the birth certified, and this document declares them to be lost at sea. They're legally dead, and everything is owned by the Vatican until they formally announce to the world that they're still alive. Now, in this country, it goes much deeper. Here in America, basically, okay, this idea of having the original and then the corporate entity. Okay, what's going on in this country is, okay, there's America, and then there's the U.S., the United States. People think it's the same thing. It's actually not. It's two completely different things. Okay, so America, now that started, okay, so in, okay, the Declaration of Independence, that was in 1776. And then there was the Articles of Confederation, that was in 1778. And then the Constitution was written in 1787. Okay, so now in these 1780s, the American colonists, they were what's known as sovereign people. They were a republic. That basically means sovereign, that's like people, there's no government. People just govern themselves using common sense. Okay, now, so these people came from England. They came over to this different land. Now, even though they came over, the colonists they were still in debt to the royal family. There was this large debt that was owed to European banks. It was due in 1789. Actually, many countries were starting to get in debt to these big banks. England actually went bankrupt in 1850, and that papal bull for the baptism, that ended up going to Vatican's Temple Bar. Now, in the 1830s, Andrew Jackson paid off most of the debt. Now, in the 1860s, a little something called the Civil War was started. Okay, the Civil War, that was a big turning point. A lot of things changed. A lot of new concepts were introduced. But okay, now in 1868, this was when a corporation was founded. Okay, so in America, a corporation called the United States Corporation. It's run by the District of Columbia. Okay, the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. has nothing to do with America. It's a private company that's run by the Vatican. Okay. Okay, now, a lot of people know about the 13th Amendment. Now, they think that ended slavery. Well, that's actually not true. Okay, and instead of you need to look at this differently. Okay, now after the 13th Amendment, there was the 14th Amendment. And here, in this Black's Law Dictionary, they actually have the entire Constitution and all the amendments. They have them written out. You can look at this. Okay, so Amendment 14, that was in 1868. And it says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States. See, it says the United States. It says nothing about America. This is the private corporation. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Okay, this is very important. Okay, the 14th Amendment, really, instead of getting rid of slavery, they really just changed it. They pretty much just gave it a different name. This different name is called a citizenship. Okay, now, people think they have rights. Okay, you need to look at this differently. Really, your citizenship, it pretty much consists of, what you have is, you have duties, services, privileges, and benefits. And they really have to do with the same thing. They have to do with being a servant. Okay, we can look at Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, now first let's look at you have services in your citizenship. Okay, a service, it is the status or condition of a servant, especially a domestic servant. Okay, so this is what you have in your citizenship. Oh, and if you look up duties, this is basically the same thing. Okay, a duty is a legal obligation that is owed or due to another that needs to be satisfied. Okay, and that's that which one is bound to. So your birth certificate and your citizenship, it is a bond. You're bound to your service and duty to your citizenship. Now, instead of rights, now what you really have is you just have privileges. Here, we can look at a privilege. A privilege is a legal right, exemption, or immunity granted to a person or a class of persons. It's an exception to a duty. Okay, so you have your duties, you have your services to the citizenship, to the corporation, and they might grant you a little privilege. They might grant you a little exception to your duty. Okay, so, and along with the privileges, you also have benefits. Now, a benefit, this is the advantage or privilege. See, it's a privilege. Something gives the helpful or useful effect something has. Yes, a profit or gain, especially a consideration that moves to the promisee. Okay, so with your duties and services, you get a little privilege, you get a benefit. So a benefit works both ways. So for the owners of the corporation, the citizenship, they get the benefit of your service, and occasionally they give you a little privilege. They throw you a bone every once in a while. So really, this citizenship, it's really just a ship of servants. So it's like a slave ship. And it's also clearly run by pirates. So it's a pirate ship. It's like the Skull and Bones. One of the biggest organizations in this country is the Skull and Bones Society. A lot of presidents came from this society. A lot of the Bush family, like George W. Bush, Bush Sr., also John Kerry. And see, where have you seen this logo, the skull and crossbones? You see it on Poison. And also you see it with pirates. It's a pirate ship. It is big. You need to know what flags are being flown in Admiralty law. Okay, so your birth certificate, so it creates your citizenship. You're bound to the citizenship. And now your birth certificate, it's what's called a security. It's always on security paper. Here, this is the bottom of a certified, is a birth certificate, and it's on watermarked security paper. Here, we can look at security in Black's Law Dictionary. A security is collateral given or pledged to guarantee the fulfillment of an obligation, especially the assurance that a creditor will be repaid, especially like any money or credit extended to a debtor. Okay. So it's a surety that with your services, it's your duty, and you're bound to perform the service, and it's repayment. Okay, now this stuff about the birth certificate declares you to be lost at sea. Okay, when you think of sea or water, it's not what you think in Admiralty law. Here, we can look at water. Or here, let's look at the word liquid. Or you may have seen the word like liquidation. Okay, liquid, it's of an asset capable of being readily converted into cash, or of a person or entity possessing assets that can be readily converted into cash. Okay, so what this is, it's your labor, your service. It's your duty to perform these services, and so your work is converted into money. Okay, so you work for money, and they take out taxes. So this is, yeah, you have to be a citizen to work, to be able to work in this country. Okay, now on your birth certificate, okay, now your birth certificate, your name, and not just your birth certificate, also your driver's license, all these things, your social security card, your name is in all capital letters. You're capitalized. Here, we can look at capitalize. Well, let's look at capital and capitalize. Okay, capital is of relating to or involving economic or financial capital. It also means punishable by execution, like a capital offense, like capital punishment. But okay, it's money or assets invested, invested or available for investment in a business. And like capitalized or capitalization, okay, capitalize, it's to convert earnings into capital. Yeah, so basically what it's saying is your name, so that's you on your birth certificate, you are capitalized, you're being converted into money, and you're capitalized. Again, that means you're dead. It's capital punishment. Also, I'd like to point out that, okay, in Rome, Caesar was known to lead from what's called Capitol Hill. He said he led Rome from up on the hill, and they call it Capitol Hill. Like in Washington, D.C. today, the Congress, they're up on Capitol Hill. So that comes directly from the Roman Empire. Okay, I need to talk about the flag. Okay, you need to know what flags are being flown. Okay, so there's a peace flag and there's a war flag. Okay, this peace flag, this was created in the Republic in 1799. And this means you're not at war, you're at peace times. And this is the war flag. And you notice, you may have seen this before, it might have a gold fringe. Okay, this has a lot of significance in maritime law. When your flag has this gold fringe or yellow fringe, that means your land has been captured under maritime law. You see here, see the gold tassel and the gold trim with this flag with the yellow fringe. It represents no nation and no constitution. So anytime you see that, that means your land has been captured by just some private entity, some private company or corporation. And you also see this in the military. Like on military uniforms, they have the flag with the gold fringe. See, the military, corporations have security. They have an internal service to ensure the safety of the company, not the people. And they make sure rules are enforced, duties are carried out, and if not, they can detain, eject, reject. So the military, they're basically just like grunt workers for this corporation. See, the military, on the uniforms, they have the flag with the gold fringe. So this is maritime. This is the Army, Navy, also like the Marines. Have you ever wondered why they're called the Marine? That means like water, but the Marines operate on land. Yeah, see, it all has to do with maritime law. And see the flag with the gold fringe, and it's being shown backwards. That represents, like if you're marching in on a target, you're moving in. If the flag was actually being flown, it would be going backwards. Now, also the police. Police are basically the same thing. Okay, now, when you get stopped by the police, now the first thing they always do, now they always ask to see your license or registration. Like if you get stopped in your car, they have to see your license or registration. So the police are dealing with the corporate you. They're not dealing with the flesh and blood you. Okay, they're dealing with the name in all caps. Okay, that's on your license and registration. Okay, see, when I got stopped by the cops a few months ago, okay, now they asked me for my ID. It's best not, don't give them your ID. It's best not to have a driver's license or any kind of ID with your name in all caps. Remember, that's capital punishment. It means death. Okay, So the cop asked me for my ID. I actually had it on me, but I didn't give it to them. And they asked me for my name. I just gave them a fake name. You really don't want to give them your name because the name it all has to do with they could be dealing with the corporate you because if you got a license, it's all registered. So now they'll give you a chart. They'll describe the rules. They'll give you a charge, and then they'll ask you, do you understand? Okay, this is important. When the cops say, do you understand? You have to say, no, I do not understand. See, there's a different meaning in maritime law. Okay, so in Black's Law Dictionary, you can look up stand. A stand is like you've heard like a witness stand. And actually, here you can look at standing. Standing is a party's right to make a legal claim or seek judicial enforcement of a duty or right. So when the cops say, do you understand? They mean, do you understand this right to make a legal claim? So you want to say, no, I do not understand your authority to make this legal claim. You want to overstand. Okay, the police are there to protect the corporation. They're there to protect the company, just like the military. Like I've talked to people who have been to jail. Most people that have been to jail is for nonsense. It's for taxes, like registration, like failure to appear. Either that or they were smoking pot. They got caught with a joint. Most people are there for non-violent. Just victimless crimes. So really, you don't want to talk to the police. You don't want to talk to the police or go to court ever, if it's all possible. Okay, now I've talked about the money. It's the currency or the cash flow. Well, the actual paper, it's what's called tender. Okay, now, an actual tender, now in maritime law, there's a couple of different ways to describe tender. Now, a tender, actually on the sea, a tender is a boat that rescues. Like if you need to bail, the tender rescues you. Now we can look up tender in Black's Law Dictionary. Now tender is a valid and sufficient offer of performance, specifically an unconditional offer of money or performance to satisfy a debt or obligation. So the money is it's for debt. You see here, actually on the money, it says this note is legal tender for all debts. Okay, I'm going to get deeper into this here. Okay, really what this is with money, banks are the river bank and the currency, the current of the sea. They direct the flow of bodies of water. That's what a riverbank does. Like if they can direct the current of the bodies of water, then they make it easier to control and navigate. It's like an electrical current. Control it and direct the right charge, like banks charge, you can use that energy. I mean, it's pretty much common knowledge. We're being used as energy for these controllers in this Roman church, this Roman Empire. You see, it's like we're batteries. Like in commerce, the current flows eventually. Okay, now in commerce, the current flows eventually to the debt. Notice debt sounds like dead. Okay, so we're batteries. You see, the current flows. Okay, so batteries eventually die. And then now what's happening is more batteries, their energy is being taken and it's going to the dead battery. And this keeps going in a loop. So what money really is, it's the moon eye. It's like, okay, so the all-seeing eye, like with the sun and black sun on loop, there's an all-seeing eye. It's the tetragrammaton. Like when the black sun takes in the sun's light, it's the all-seeing eye that displays it as the astrolight in this holographic reality. So we're supposed to be doing this. Now, as the energy of the sun spirals, we're supposed to speak our intent, and that brings our creation into reality. And we're supposed to be capable of this high energy, high frequency. So the moon is redirecting the current of this energy flow and keeping it at a lower energy level, a lower frequency that's easier to control and handle. So we're stuck in this recycling, this life, death, life, death. Okay, you're supposed to be living off the land, earthing, sun gazing, and people that do this can live forever. Okay, so you have to get out of this recycling. You have to get on the side of life. Okay, so that's what's going on in the system on a deeper level. Okay, I'm going to be getting more into this. So I suggest you start looking into this maritime law, admiralty law, and start getting onto the side of life, getting out of this recycling system. Okay, well, thanks for watching, everyone.